So thanks for coming today. How did an under 40-year-old tomboy from suburban California make a meteoric rise to the top of the news world in less than 10 years? In her 2009 interview with Louise France from The Observer, Rachel Maddow even said, "I'm not a TV anchor, babe. I'm a big lesbian who looks like a man." Rachel Maddow is one of my heroes, even though she is younger than me by several years. Advocate magazine just named her the #1 most influential person in the media, heading an impressive list of personalities, some of whom have been household names for decades. This year's list includes Harvey Levin, Robin Roberts, Anderson Cooper, Susie Orman, Andrew Sullivan, Don Lemon, and others. Rachel seems to be doing her best at being true to who she is and her personality, doing fact-based reporting that doesn't rely on mere spectacle and sound bites that much of our political reporting has devolved into. Rachel writes books in her spare time, lives a relatively quiet private life with her partner Susan, and even struggles with depression, as she has so honestly shared in a few venues, most notably on Fresh Air with Terry Gross on NPR. In many ways, except for her fabulous fame, outrageous salary, and huge contribution to the world, we're a lot alike. The New York Times described Rachel's first book, Drift, as a lively but spirited argument about American history and the role of armed conflict in our society. I'm a gay man who's lived in a monogamous relationship for nearly 15 years. I have a lifetime diagnosis of depression and strive to manage it while building a career, taking care of my own, and finding ways to enjoy my life. I live a relatively quiet life too with my spouse, Philip, trying to be true to myself and help others along the way. I'm not expecting the same volume of sales as Rachel, but I too have written a book that is slated for publication next year. In many ways, Rachel Maddow gives me hope for the future. She's perhaps a younger, better, more successful model of how I'd like to live my life. In her consistency and model values, she inspires me to keep being true to myself and not give up hope for future generations. In fact, she gives me reasons to count on them. Forget the iPhone 6. Let's hope that Rachel Maddow represents the 2.0 or higher version of a successful LGBT person integrated normally into society and doing good. Today I'll discuss Rachel's background, her education and career, her current success in publishing, media, and advocacy. Those things give people like me faith that perhaps as Americans and as a world in these very interesting times. Though Rachel has hit the mainstream and been catapulted to the top in seemingly less than a decade, she has an interesting background. She was a suburban high school student from Castro Valley, California. A&E's Network Bio reported that even in high school, Rachel volunteered at a local AIDS clinic on the down low from her parents, who were very conservative Christian Catholics and weren't very comfortable with her being gay, much less volunteering at an AIDS clinic. In college, she brazenly stood up to what she considered all too acceptable and widespread homophobia by coming out publicly at the age of 17 in the school newspaper. Can you imagine the bravado, foolhardiness, and courage this must have required? In her interview with Terry Gross on NPR's Fresh Air, where she discussed this and other topics, she admitted a lot of this stunt had to do with politics, but it also simply had to do with being 17 years old at the time. Rachel received a bachelor's degree in public policy from Stanford and became a Rhodes Scholar, earning a doctorate at Oxford in political science. Her Rhodes Scholar status elevated her to an elite list of people. U.S. News and World Reports published a list of the companies she keeps in this category, including Bill Bradley, Naomi Wolf, Chris Christopherson, and President Bill Clinton. Oh, that I had embraced and taken seriously my own education at such a young age. Rachel has redefined the network of MSNBC and political punditry by reviving the fact-based investigation and education of the public in a style that harkens to the great journalists like William F. Buckley, Walter Cronkite, and Edward R. Murrow. At the same time, she brings a humanity, a realness, and humor to what can otherwise be boring subjects. Rachel doesn't lean on the sound effects, DOG graphics, or soundbite hysteria that is so common to many well-known so-called news outlets. I'm sure you know those. She took over the lead position at MSNBC right after Keith Olbermann exited the New York, and the New York Times reported a huge increase in audience right away when she took over. Since then, the head of MSNBC has described her as the quarterback of MSNBC News and the viewpoints that they put on a daily basis. And it hasn't become all about Rachel either. She's created opportunities for other fresh voices in liberal politics, including Chris Hayes and Steve Kornacki. An often repeated Eastern adage is that a true master isn't known by his or her personal skill, but by how many masters they actually create themselves. Beyond all those accomplishments, Rachel seems like a down-to-earth human being, something that can seem really hard to find in our media nowadays. She spends her weekends out of New York in a country home in Massachusetts with her partner Susan, and until recently, Newsweek reported she didn't even own a TV. She wears sneakers under the desk and purchased 2 matching $19 blazers that she alternates when she was told she needed to spiff it up for primetime television. With all that down-to-earthness, though, she's dared to engage a long-running feud with junior senator and presidential hopeful Rand Paul, first on his seeming flip-flop over support of the human rights, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and also recently over his alleged plagiarism in some of the speeches that he's given. While Mr. Paul has resorted to some name-calling and hiding on the subjects, Rachel's remained cordial and professional to him throughout their concerns, urging him to stay centered on the facts. Time magazine even published a timeline of the conflict, including all public quotes by each of the parties. It's very revealing. How many modern American journalists have the courage to go head-to-head with powerful politicians? In spite of all that, a telling story about Rachel, I believe, is that after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, she jumped behind the bar to help out because they were too busy, serving drinks equally graciously to Sarah Palin and even Republican Scott Brown, who for decades won't even talk to her. Rachel Maddow defines a new type, or perhaps the revival of an older style of political journalism, and she's also a real person who doesn't hide her quirks, her sexuality, her neuroses, her charm, in short, her humanity. I believe our country and people can benefit from more people like her, real people with real skills and knowledge and credentials. Rachel engages her audience in politics not just by complaining about politicians. She inspires me and others to get educated, get involved, be professional, and do your best. That's a valuable message that can be lost in the media buzz of TMZ, Gawker, the Twitterverse, things like that. At the same time, she's a real person like us, trying to carve out a personal life and grow a career in a business that can be all-consuming. I know I've learned much from her, and I believe others do too. I look forward to learning more from her and from other people who are younger than me. Imagine a world where more people are true to themselves, where more people rely on education, the arena of ideas, honest debate and cordiality, and personal responsibility for our democracy. Juxtapose that world against one that can seem solely interested in self-aggrandizement, politics as usual, flag-waving, selfies, and demonizing the enemy. Imagine more of us all working this model and just doing our best for the good of all. Might work, huh? Rachel Maddow is one of many people who inspires me in that direction, and I hope she continues to do so for me and for you and for others. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. I'll take questions after the video is done.
Very interesting.
Well done.